WhatsApp, or Instagram. Interact live, party from home. Subscribe, follow, send us your voice notes. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, or call us live in studio. Be where the world is going. Stay home and connect online. Boom 1069, IKTV. Join the evolution. It's all about you. Connect now.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Let's Get Down to Business. Let's Get Down to Business is a collaboration between the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and IKTV. On the program this evening is a very distinguished guest. You will meet her when we come back from the break.
Isn't it good to know that no matter where you are, you're covered? Covered by a company owned by Vincentians that understands your unique insurance needs. At Metrosint General Insurance Company, we've invested 50 years of service to guarantee that you have the peace of mind that you deserve. When it comes to motor vehicle, property, employer's liability, business insurance, and much more, we've got you covered. Our professional and friendly staff understands your needs and ensures you understand your options. Metrosint General Insurance Company.
Keep calm. We're online now. Thousands of local content for your viewing pleasure. Live. Boom. IKTV. Tune in. Get interactive. Get involved with WhatsApp or Instagram. Interact live. Party from home. Subscribe, follow, send us your voice notes. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, or call us live in studio. Be where the world is going. Stay home and connect online. Boom 1069, IKTV. Join the evolution. It's all about you. Connect now.
You're looking at Let's Get Down to Business. My name is Tony Regisford, and I have the honor and privilege to have as my guest on this edition of the program none other than Rene Baptiste, somebody who I think I've gone back with, or I go back with quite a number of years, especially in the field of television and so on. So, Rene, I am most delighted to welcome you here and to chat a bit about Rene and her achievements in all the aspects of your life.
Oh, thank you so much for such a warm welcome. You know, I too recall the days when we had Inside Out.
Yes, but I think our relationship goes back before that.
Back before that, yes, indeed.
SVG TV.
Yes.
Because I believe there was an arrangement that you read the news, but I was the space agency. At the time was the company that sort of managed it. If you
Yeah, when I
That's back to the 80s, really.
I started in December 21st, 1981 or 82.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's back in the 80s.
Back in the 80s, yeah.
So let's have a little chat about Rene. I know you are an esteemed barrister. You are a stalwart member of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, which is excellent. You've got a lot of legal experience. You've worked in that field in many different aspects of it. You're a politician. You're a community person. You held many official positions, including the Speaker of the OECS House of Assembly.
OSM, yes.
So that's what I mean when I say you are a distinguished and esteemed guest.
Okay.
Tell me about your early days, Rene. You were born in Kingstown?
I was born in Kingstown. I was born on Bay Street, and I was born a couple of days after the 8th Army had their march.
So the 8th Army is a was a political
It was a
party.
political party, yes. And my mother always says that she was hurrying down the stairs to go and look at the march and slipped. And they said, "Oh my God, you'll lose the baby." Of course, she didn't lose the baby.
But so you're born on that day, the day of the slip?
No, the 27th of October.
Well, there you go. What was life like in Kingstown? Because I guess you were an urban girl. And,
yes, I'm a town girl. Yeah, you know, my father's family lived in Buckerment.
Right.
And my mother grew up in Bay Street. In those days, Bay Street was not a business hub as it is now. There were a lot of residences along that where PH Vera has the hardware, right along that whole street. And of course, Kingstown was also residential, but also had some businesses at the time. I don't remember that much about Bay Street because we left when I was just before my 4th birthday.
And you went to the Kingston Park?
Went to the Kingston Park. What I remember, however, was an incident that had happened where there was a fire. And I vaguely have flashes of this fire because I disappeared. I ran. And apparently I ran to a place I knew in Middle Street. So they were able to tell my mom where I was because a little kid, you know, everybody's, "Oh, fire, fire," and you just slip through between people.
Amazing. Your primary school days, what primary school did you attend?
I attended the private primary school of Elaine Deschamps, Vibert Deschamps' mother. She had a private primary school right where now the Catholics have the shelter and a kitchen down there.
I know that, yes. So that's in
Rose Place.
Okay.
So she used to have a private school there with about 12, 15 students. And the year I was to do in those days is 11 plus.
Right.
I then transferred to St. Mary's RC.
Okay, so you went there for the year of that exam.
Yeah.
And then you went into the girls'
High School, and then St. Vincent Grammar School. It was I was among the charter class of resident boys and girls in 6B and 6A.
Let's talk a bit about your secondary school, because I think by that time, that age, you started to formulate what Rene Baptiste would eventually become. What were your interests in those days, you know, your teenage days?
In my teenage days, because during that time, my mother was a very stalwart supporter of the Labour Party. And so sometimes the folks would meet at home. They used to meet on a Friday or Saturday night, once a month, to have a little eat up and get together and so on. And also the credit union.
Right.
She was very active in the credit union. It was government employees at that time. And I remember the days when you had to do fundraising because you didn't have these 40, 50,000 members. You know, just trying to get members to join.
Now the members carry the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you had to do fundraising, and Mrs. Ursel Cummins used to sell ice cream, and my mom used to do patties and cakes and that sort of thing. So you got in on the groundwork. It was, you know, doing salads when it wasn't public service, it was Civil Service Association, also having their meetings. You had to assist with making the salads and things like that.
But I believe you got involved in a lot of clubs and community groups in that time. Tell me a bit about those.
The YWCA, I was a member of the YWCA. I quite enjoyed being in the Y, and also at Sunday school, attending Sunday school, learning a couple of things. You know,
this is with the Anglican Church?
The Anglican Church in George's Cathedral, and went to Sunday school picnics. The picnic was either Lomans Bay or Dorsetshire Hill. And Mr. Clark's big bus, and you thought you were going to a very big place because you're going into a big bus. It was kind of adventure and going to the botanical gardens or going uptown for a walk or going to matinee, Lyric or Russell's. And that was just do well in school and you'd get your matinee money. And Wednesday matinee was also very important to go to Wednesday evening. And music was on Tuesdays and Saturdays, music classes with Mrs. Duggan. Her grandchildren called her Granddare. She used to be the organist at the Methodist Church. Very tall, stately, fair-skinned woman. Erlene and who was in my classmate, Dougal, their grandmother. And went to storytelling at the library, sitting on the back
So
steps
you were
of the
quite
library.
involved with, I mean, you were a busy person, I could see, socially.
Socially, I liked reading and
Yes.
I liked going to music.
So the music part, because people know you as many things, but they also know you as a fantastic singer. Was it there that whole thing started to gel?
No, my mother, in listening to my mother going into the concerts, because she was a soloist, a soprano singer, and she would give us her programs when the church used to have Christmas recitals. And so we have the program, we say, what did you talking about in the 1940s? Yeah, I was talking. And she would go into her cupboard and bring out the program to prove. And she'd always be able to prove, And then I recall when she sang at Peace Memorial Hall when they had concerts and you had the Women's League of the Labour Party having a concert. Right. Mrs. Vilna Cox was the pianist. Yes. And they were accompanying them, Beryl Richards and all those people of blessed memory, they were in the choir. And I used to be fascinated by listening to Beryl Richards and they singing the contralto and the alto and so on. And a little girl, little donkey at big ears, you listen to what they're saying about breathing and taking the notes.
You wanted to have that expression at some way with your voice. Yes. Rene, we're coming to the end of this first segment. This is how time flies. But when we come back, I want us to talk about your, work in the academic sphere during secondary school, and also who were the influential people then that led you on to go and do law. You're looking at Let's Get Down to Business. My guest is Rene Baptiste, barrister at law. When we come back, we'll continue to listen and learn more from this very esteemed lady. Welcome back. This is Let's Get Down to Business. My name is Tony Regisford, and I am chatting with Rene Baptiste, Miss Rene Baptiste, barrister at law, among other things. Rene, and I call you Rene because I think,
we go back a long,
I think you permit me to do that.
Of
yes.
Course. I don't have those vanities,
Well, great. Your life in high school and grammar school, I believe you may have been influenced a lot by some of the people who brought you through that system. I'm talking about the teachers. What do you remember of them? What were the things that stood out? And why did you go on to study law? Who helped you along the way? Okay. And was that always your ambition?
I think it was always my ambition. I remember very distinctly Mr. Ferdinand, Miss Ferdy that has a shop, her husband.
Right.
So he passed on many, many years ago. And he would ask me, what's in the newspaper? And so on. And as I got a little old, he said, what do you want to be in your paper? I say, I want to be a lawyer. And I keep asking myself, which lawyer did I know? I don't think I knew any lawyers. I want to be a lawyer. And then he'd ask my sister, because my sister was always tiny, and he said, Ducky, what would you like to be? And she said, I'm going to be a doctor. Because my mom had bought these books from the Seventh-day Adventists, used to sell these books, the medical books and so on. And she bought this book, and my uncle Vernon had brought one from Aruba, a medical book also, with the baby in a section showing the baby in the womb. And my sister slept on that book all her, from primary school, with that book under her head. So I think that was just that influence. And my mother was an avid reader. And I think we got that from her. So you have to read a lot. And then while I was in high school, and if I had difficulties at school, she would say, you have to stay in school, you have to stay in high school. And she will bring out her medal, because she had Empire Day medals she got when she was at primary school at Anglican school. And then she would bring her prize books, because we see the books in the study downstairs. And she would show us these books. And in those years, the high school used to engrave their books in gold.
Wow.
Were engraved in gold. And so these are the things, that I acquired.
And what about the teachers?
But my teachers that influenced me, I think, a great deal was Mrs. Norma Keyser from the get-go. From the time I entered high school, I so admired this woman and said, Lord, she got to university, and, you get to know the story of her life. Then when I got Mrs. Lorna de Beek, was another one. I liked the way that she spoke, and her decorum, the way that she walked, and so. And young girls, I want to be like when I grow up. And then my mom was very active in the Old Girls Association. We had persons her 1940s and 50s who went through high school, having special tea parties. And my mother told me when she was in school, used to have a session on Wednesday evenings for etiquette, to teach you etiquette, table etiquette, dining etiquette, visiting etiquette.
So you were brought up in a very refined way.
Very refined way. And in my fifth form, the person whom I also admired greatly was Mrs. Morgan. She was the wife of Morgan, who was headmaster at grammar school.
Right.
And she had this Bayesian accent. And I think, young people, you're so listening to her speak, and she indulged my love for English literature. I liked Latin as well. Mrs. Lane Cornell taught Latin. I thought it was fascinating because you used to go to these movies, Spartacus and those and so on. So you tried to put in frame when Latin was the language and so on. So those are things that influenced me. My sister, on the other hand, she didn't do science subjects, but she loved her English language and biology. And she was the athlete. Volleyball, netball, but more so netball. And she was captain of junior high. And in those days, you had to come good to beat junior high in JHS. They were champions.
What subjects did you pursue was it Cambridge O-levels in those days?
Cambridge O-levels. And you did 2 subjects which now these days have been changed around a bit. I did religious studies, and I did housecraft. I think it was, I'm trying to remember the exact name. It was cookery. And also the English literature, English lang, French, history, geography. There were 8 in all. I think I did. Yeah.
8 would have been a lot in those days.
In those days, yes. You got, and I think I did over 1 subject or 2 subjects later on. But then we went over to 6th form in 1969.
And in those days, the 6th form was just a combination. It was the grammar school.
This was the grammar school, yes. Just off the assembly hall.
Yes.
That's where 6B was, and 6A was facing the lawn, the front lawn there at grammar school. And there were about maybe 12, 14 in the 6A. And 6B had about 20 of us. Dougal Williams, Ken Brown, Swala Brown, Glenroy Brown, Bex Gonzalez.
Yes.
For girls was Kay Bacchus, Jill Wason, Brendan Everson, Carolyn Brisbane, Graves. She's now married to Woodruff.
Okay, Andrew Woodruff's
Wife, yes. Those were the girls in the.
You know, people looking at this program with, you know, an elite group. So sixth form, again, Cambridge A levels.
Cambridge A levels, English literature, history, economics, geography. And when we didn't have a geography teacher, so my mom was assistant secretary at Ministry of Agriculture. Mr. Hannum Eustace was then there at Agriculture. Mr. James Mitchell, as he then was the Minister of Agriculture. Mm-hmm. And she asked Inky Williams,
who was the
chief surveyor, if he can help us with physical geography. And it used to be good to go. There were only about 3 or 4 of us doing geography, to go and do the field trips, so you can actually relate to what you were reading, because we had no teacher really to teach that. And
so the A-levels were the subjects that you used to matriculate?
To matriculate into UWI. And we went into, 3 of us went into the Faculty of Law. The Faculty of Law had started in 1970, and we applied for 71. Cave Hill. And we did, had an interview. So Edward Lang, lecturer at the time, came to St. Vincent, to UWI Center, and we had an interview there by Edward Lang to enter the Faculty of Law.
While all of this is going on, Rene, because I know we're talking about the academic side of your life, but clearly, in sixth form and your early days of university, I imagine, we're talking early 70s, right? I imagine there was a lot going on in terms of people's awareness, their consciousness.
Black power.
Yeah, we're just moving, most of the islands are moving towards independence. America is having the civil rights movement.
That's right.
You know,
Education Forum of the People was in its heyday. Mr. Parnell Campbell was our form master, and he used to come in and sit straight up like that, his shirt immaculately white. And so he was an excellent form master. We did photography with him as extracurricular, and learned a lot about photography. And he would be teasing the guys about, if they come late, you have to pay 25 cents, and he would always be moaning the fact that they didn't pay the 25 cents.
He was a disciplinarian, eh?
Yes, he was.
But tell me a bit about this conscious movement. Because
I remember there was
talk about the 70s.
This debate with Campbell and a number of them, Corwin Morris and that group, and the government of the day thought that they were invading the consciousness and trying to change the people. And we had the big falling out, demonstration around the lawn there.
Dawn at Grammar School.
Starkey John was one of the speakers on the platform, and then afterwards he was suspended from duties, and there was a sort of a mini commission of inquiry. And I remember Mr. Collymore was one of the commissioners. He was a magistrate, and a very young, boisterous lawyer called Carlyle Duggan was legal assistant at the Ministry of Legal Affairs. And they had the inquiry there. Mrs. Decima Sinjo was the clerk working upstairs at the magistrate court. She became a great friend of mine, where, you know, you have your mom, but you also have friends who are your mom's age, they're contemporary, who also you befriended or who befriended you. And she was my confidant. That was the kind of atmosphere. You had the meetings of the Education Forum of the People. You also had what was happening at Sir George William University in Montreal, and the young progressives.
What about the music and the fashion of those days?
The fashion was...
Wasn't that related to the consciousness?
The consciousness. The fashion was platform shoes, fashion fair cosmetics. Flory Roberts. That was the first set of cosmetics I know for Black people. And you also had the Four Tops, the Seasons.
People coming out of Motown.
The Supremes, Roberta Flack, Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett.
Right.
And everybody wanted to screw like Wilson Pickett, James Brown. I wanted to dance Percy Sledge. Those were the artists of the day. And
of course, there was the reggae coming out of
then the reggae coming out of Jamaica.
Yeah.
First it was ska,
Mhm.
and then reggae, and then spooge out of Barbados. And the Merry Men used to have record after record after record, starting to put a brand for Barbados, build a brand
I
for
want
Barbados.
to find out if Rene had a radical side to her in those days, because that was the day for the manifestation of
I don't think I had a radical, the learning more about your history. Because I spent a good bit of time in the library, and before I went off to Cave Hill, I spent a summer working at the library, and that's how I got. This was just like putting me exactly where I would want to be. I love books and old papers, and so I was asked to sit down and catalog the West Indian section and also the section by Vincentian authors, and that is how you start. I saw the book of poems by Ode Coombs,
right,
and of course, the Flambeau magazine. So you got to read a bit about in there, and books and the old newspapers, reading the stories about George McIntosh, reading also what was happening.
So you were just soaking up all of this knowledge,
yes,
and understanding about from whence you came.
From whence you came, yes.
Yeah. Rene, when we come back to the next segment, I'm going to talk about Rene the politician. I'm curious to find out how Rene got actively involved in politics and is actively involved even as we speak. So when we come back from the break, you're looking at Let's Get Down to Business. More with my guest, Miss Rene Baptiste, when we come back.
Keep calm. We're online now. Thousands of local content for your viewing pleasure. Live. Boom. IKTV. Tune in. Get interactive. Get involved with WhatsApp or Instagram. Interact live. Party from home. Subscribe, follow, send us your voice notes. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, or call us live in studio. Be where the world is going. Stay home and connect online. Boom 1069, IKTV. Join the evolution. It's all about you. Connect now.
This is Let's Get Down to Business. My guest on this edition is Miss Rene Baptiste, politician, lawyer, musician, community person, stalwart of the chamber, and I can go on and on. Rene, the politician, where did that come? I mean, I know your mother was involved in
going to political meetings with her.
Of the Labour Party.
Going to political meetings with her.
How did you start? How did you actually start your political voice?
My political voice began in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
I had been home now in 1976, graduated, called to the bar in 76. And I started going to meetings. First, I joined the party in 1975, the 5th of August, Labour Party. Mm. My card was signed by Hobbs Huggins and Mr. Fraser, Lily Fraser. Mm-hmm. My membership card, 5th of August, 1975. And then coming home, the Soufre erupted. I got involved in working with Dr. Ballantyne, as he then was, at the hospital, taking supplies, going to the centers. And then when, through my office, we were doing a lot of work with the Red Cross, and that's how I became involved with the Red Cross in 79. We were doing telex wire transfers to the British Red Cross, because we were a branch of the British Red Cross. And I got fascinated by the work, the community work, and started working there, and then the politics. And I went out.
When was the first time you spoke on a political platform?
My first political speech was at Byra, campaigning for one Mr. Vincent Beach, as he then was. And I knew him through my cousin Claudette, who was his great friend. And of course, he used to be also coming home here by my mom, him, and Grafton Isaacs and Hudson Tanis and Cato himself, Mr. D'Souza, Alfie, King, all these people who were involved in politics. And that's it. I was there.
The Labour Party, of course, had the seat of office from 1974 to 1984,
yeah.
a 10-year period. So you say you got actively really involved in 79.
I was chairman pro tem because Comrade Latham was not so well. So I was, Hudson said, go there and chair the meeting at the town hall at Calico. Henrik Alexander was secretary. And Mr. Thompson was treasurer.
Right.
John Thompson was treasurer. Margaret Cato was president of the Women's League.
And you were back from university, you were been called to the bar and all that. What were you doing alongside this politics?
Alongside politics, I was charged with opening the financial services sector, the legislation. I had training with the insurance specialists and banking specialists out of Zurich. I did an intensive set of training with them and worked on the first set of legislation. And then I became the manager, set up the systems, set up the accounting, the certificates, the design of the certificates, worked on that together, the statutory form for the memorandum and articles of association. And I opened the office and kept it running until 1984. When the government changed, they had an inquiry or a committee set up to review what all the past administration was doing. And of course, I knew I was a target. And they came, and I think they came with a lot of biases.
So you felt as if you were being witch hunted then?
Well, in those days, they called the Witch Hunt Committee.
Okay.
And you had to show what work were you doing. And because already the papers in 1979, January, there was a big scandal that broke in the Wall Street Journal, and St. Vincent was in the Wall Street Journal, and my name was in the Wall Street Journal. Not just like that, this is a little mini place in St. Vincent with your name in the Wall Street Journal. Oh gosh, what is this girl is doing? They're going to cause all sorts of problems. And of course, that wasn't the case. But you had newspapers of the day featured every month. There was something about me and the offshore banks and all the rest of it.
You were the talk of the town.
The talk of the town.
But what was your relationship like with the then Prime Minister, Sir James Mitchell?
Well, after they had...
In that period I'm talking about.
In that period of time, after the committee did their research and so on, and they were able to say, yes, one, she had accounts. I produced them in batches of 4 quarters of the year and the number of years and the reports and everything, and they were quite satisfied. The money was in the bank, and we were making good money back then. And I was left alone, except for his supporters who thought, change of government mean change of all these people, kick them out, get rid of them. I even had a big stalwart frontline man, you would have called him today. When I walked in the street, he would say, like she says, go to kick her in her ass and get her out and so on. And I remember when he said that, and I'm quite saucy, so I backpedaled and I said, would you like to do it right now here? I don't mind. You could go ahead and do it,
You came through all this political rancor. And,
even my car that I was driving, a left-hand drive, red Mitsubishi, and it had a poster of Burns Barnaby in it. And when the committee was leaving, one committee member came back who was considered the head hunter, head hunter. What about your car? I said, what about my car? Well, no, it's a corporation car. It's a corporation car and you're still driving the car. I said, well, sir, you have my permission to ask the bank about the account for it. And it's in my name.
Well, But you sailed through all that gracefully. I mean, and then you went back into private practice.
Yeah, I had never been in private
Right,
practice.
you started your private practice.
But the only thing I used to do at that time that I was permitted to do was adoptions. And I also was serving on the adoption board at that time.
Right.
While also serving in the community and still with the Red Cross, continuing to do work with the Red Cross. With the church, very active in my church. I even did a little stint as a Sunday school teacher.
There you go. You started your private practice.
86 March.
Right. But
86.
You stayed very close to politics, I think.
Yes. We had convention around that time, and I became assistant general secretary.
Yeah.
And then it was a little difficult doing practice, trying to stay your practice. And I told myself, I'm going to take a leave of absence and I'll be back in 96 or somewhere there. And they said, 10 years. I said, well, no, I'll be still around, I'll still have the fundraising and
yes.
I'll continue to be active,
The Labour Party stayed in the doldrums from 84 to...
Yep. Because that's what you call severely wounded.
Yes.
And you had to do some introspection. You had to accept the fact that times were changing. The 18-year-olds had gotten to vote. There was some political missteps with the business sector, and then there was a 3% tax. And
do you think that 3% turnover tax was...
It was a huge thing because...
Was a factor in...
It was a factor because the bigger profiled merchants were very vocal, became very anti-Labour. And the people couldn't believe that those supporters who had always been with the party were upset about this tax and then an increase. They were increasing in taxes for other imports. Like I say, the governments do run afoul of their big friends. And that sort of created a lot of coldness with people who would otherwise be very active and be having supporters around them. Being the people who would convince and work with that group. And remember, some of them also had the retail people who were purchasing and taking their stocks out to different parts of the country. And also, I think there was a perception that control among elected members, there was some issues of control and things like that nature.
Right. So all that led to the loss in 1984.
Yep. It was a long way to come back.
Correct.
Yep.
But then came the 1998 election.
Yes, because by then, 1989, when that election came,
the NP won all 15 seats.
They won all 15 seats. It meant that something is wrong.
Yes.
You have to do something. And people thought maybe the leadership was too stale. Maybe the party is not listening to the emerging new voices that are coming up. Yeah, new voices were coming up. Maybe you didn't have the maturity in the background. You didn't have the friends, the influence. But it was a voice to listen to at the same time. And the MMU was not getting, because in 84, the UPM was slaughtered in 79.
Right.
They just got slaughtered. Everybody lost their deposit. And then they tried to come back, but they really couldn't come back because during that period of time, you had the Grenada Revolution that turned things really sour. And what had happened in Grenada was so unusual. We don't know about guns, and so everything was guns and taking away property and that sort of thing.
Right. So that scared people off.
That scared people off. And then there was what you call the remaking of how do you evolve out of that. The younger people, because you have to have young people coming up. How do they evolve out of that? And then there were these discussions. Look, Mitchell got 15 seats. What do you do to break it? And 94.
And this is where the accommodation
started.
Yes,
and in conversations about what would be the philosophy of the party. How do you can't say you're purest pure of the pure. you have to open the door. You have to allow other people to come in and sit around the table. And then everybody would not agree with you 100% of the time, but you have to get people coming in, bringing fresh blood, fresh ideas, fresh approaches.
We're talking a lot of politics in this program, and I'm going to continue when I come back. I'm sitting with a politician, so
Well,
I'm going to continue when we come back into our final segment. And I would hope when we get the politics out of the way, I would get back to Rene, the lawyer, and I would want some comments about your view on the business climate.
okay.
As I know, you are very interested in that, and you're an ardent supporter and stalwart member of the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
You're looking at Let's Get Down to Business. When we come back from the break, I'll be into my final segment. This is Let's Get Down to Business. My guest on this edition is Miss Rene Baptiste. Rene, when we went off to that break, we were deep into this political passage. And I think I want to continue that a bit because I know you became an elected member, parliament, when the ULP, as it was then in 2001, contested the election and won. So there was that period, you're talking about the accommodation in 94. So in 94, I believe that accommodation brought 3 seats to the opposition.
Yes.
Right? Which were now Prime Minister.
Now Prime Minister.
Dr. Gonsalves, Straker, Louis Straker,
and Vincent Beach. That's the end one.
So this was the light at the end of the tunnel.
That was the light at the end of the tunnel. Louis was young, fresh, and well known, beloved by the people in Central Leeward. So you know that is an Iron Man. He's not, difficult to defeat him. So Vincent Beach had done what no other politician had done. Move from a safe, nice seat and go into another seat. Could he make it?
But always a safe seat too.
And it was also a safe seat. Yeah, it was. Southwind was
bedrock labor.
Bedrock labor. And the young lecturer from university, the young lawyer, a successful lawyer practicing, Dr. Gonsalves.
Who was very active in the sort of politics that we're talking about in the conscious days,
and writing,
and a very active writer.
Yes.
So, was there some reluctance to accommodate?
Well, you also have to remember, a mass party will always have persons who immediately would say, "Listen, what it takes is this. Let's go for it." Then you'll have those who say, "Yeah, let's go for it," but this, and then you have those, "Man."
What was it? His perceived ideology? What was
what would have been originally the perceived ideology? Because people wanted to say, "Oh, he don't believe in that philosophy of the Labour Party," because our Labour Party was always also affiliated with the British Labour Party, and
which are basically socialist
oriented as well. Yes. So I think that also helped to pave the way when people said, "Listen, but we are affiliated with the British Labour Party and they have a socialist agenda, and his agenda that he's coming with is not that far different."
Right.
And I think that persuaded people. And what persuades people is somebody coming with a winning formula.
Well, there you go.
He had the winning formula.
Right.
And he laid down and people liked his aggression, his freshness, his newness, his youth. And because you always have to be sure you start to build for succession. So
let's go to 2001. You are going to contest the West Kingstown seat.
Yes.
You're going up against what was then an Iron Man, a very light person in the constituency.
Tall, dark, and handsome.
Yes. John Horn of blessed memory.
Yes.
who I think is still a name that resonates in the constituency. You were going up against him. Was that a daunting task?
No, I did my homework. And I know for some persons who thought, oh, she's going to do this in West Kingstown. I didn't put myself in West Kingstown. Stalwarts from West Kingstown came to me. Activists from West Kingstown came to me. And the person who you would call were ants, troublemakers. You know, they came to me. And we sat down and we had several conversations about the things I like, my personality, my character. And they said, yeah, we can go with that. We could deal with that and so on. I said, well, what about working with me? There are going to be people who will try to cipher you off, divide you, because that's the nature of politics. And they said, no, we work with you and so on. There were other people, other persons who were interested in the seat. There was a caretaker in the constituency already. But their view was they want to win and they think I'm a winner.
So, and I mean, we're moving fast because in the interest of time.
Yes.
You did win.
I did win. I had an accident in August of 2000 and persons felt, oh God, I'll be having candidate selection in September 2000. How is this person going to run? And the newspapers were not very helpful either.
They were kind.
They were quite unkind. By December, we had convention. I remember one newspaper man, well known, took out a picture of me with a black walking stick and my jersey and said, can't walk, how are you going to run?
But all of this is part of the courses.
Yes. But you see, because people figured I was so, this kind of supporter, that if you keep pushing at me, I would do something stupid, I would say something foolish, or I would buckle. Wrong number, that does not work with me.
Not only did you win, but the ULP at the time.
Well, the ULP had started its sweep in 89. The victory was there. You had the majority of voters, but you did not get the majority of seats. Then there was some falling out with 2 seats. East St. George and Central Kingstown. Boom, between these seats. Could we win? We got the right candidate.
You got Ken Boy for Central.
No, Ken Boy lost to Conrad.
Sorry, yes. Because Ken Boy brought his party at that time.
He brought his party. And then when I ran, in the late half of running, when we started doing polls, and they would tell me what the polls say, if men liked me more, if women liked me more, if young people liked me more, and so on. And when they're telling me that, I'm sure that some people didn't understand that I knew how to convert polling data to actual votes.
Right.
So you have to be able to do that, and I was able to do it.
You
I had that guy run against me, and up to now I always cheat my 100 votes.
Yes. You let's talk about some of your ministerial duties. When the reform government, you were made Minister of Culture and
Tourism and Culture, according to Dr. Kenneth John at the time, Mickey Mouse Ministry.
And you became known during that period as Minister of Culture, in particular, as Mama Culture. Tell me some of your fondest achievements in that.
My fondest achievements was laying out a calendar, laying out a policy, and working with public servants who some people were just sitting in an office and nobody using those talents and skills that they have. One such person was Michael Peters, who had, I think, was waiting for somebody to say, could you work on this? Could we work on this? Is this a possibility? And the first thing was 9 Mornings, which, as you know, was on life support. And I said, yes, I'll come in. There were people who felt, boy, this woman, you have to be a domineering woman to be in politics. And they realized that I was not domineering anything. I will direct. I will be firm. But I don't want to dominate. That's not how you build consensus and build people around you and build a team. And I allow the team to work. They will tell me, this is what we're going to do. So what about doing this? Look at what 9 Mornings became. Right? Lighting up, village light up, all kind of competition. It ended when I left. We were doing a parade around the city to open 9 Mornings. That's what it had become.
And I believe you had your name attached to a lot of other cultural events.
And other cultural events,
and
mainly
also,
the Home of Culture,
yeah,
the Peace Memorial Hall, getting that back so you had a concert place, a performing place,
yeah,
working with artists that people thought, oh my God, yeah, so I could work with you. I can work
and
with
you did
people
a
in
lot of
mass
work
and all that.
around the whole
National Heroes.
National Heroes is what I'm talking about.
That was very important, and it was unfortunate that at the time the opposition wasn't talking to me because they brought a resolution against me in Parliament, which failed. And I continued my work. So when that legislation was passed, they were absent. That is the record of the Hansard. They were absent for the declaration of Joseph Chatoyer, Right Excellent Joseph Chatoyer, a national hero. And we started to build out on that. The people from north of the country came, Tajra, and they said, we want to do something. That I said, yes, well, what are you thinking of an Indigenous Peoples Festival with making ferry, and they brought the copper to town, and they had some people, oh dear, we brought the copper and Rene have these people. Then they couldn't do anything, and they thing, yeah, they said, okay, we'll do it out there. And so bringing back the National Trust, reopening the thing that was a rat trap. There were even people who said, oh, she's only doing that just to get the political thing. It has lasted.
Building was one that you helped to restore.
We got money to restore it. I'm grateful ever since to Cecil Ryan, who helped to write the project, and we got chairs and film this and all sorts of things, and drawing in other people. Mrs. Martin, now Cathy Martin, Sims Martin's wife, started working on things like looking at artifacts and where the things were buried. And then you had the Indian persons, Mrs. Rodriguez, and they come and say, we want to form this. What do you think? I said, sure.
And all that was under your watch.
All of that. Take the legislation to Parliament. My cabinet colleagues agreed with me. Yes, we would declare Indian Arrival Day. We'd have Indian Heritage Day. We'd get in the registers out of the dusty vaults of the registry that had those books lying down in there for years. My mother's who told me. There is a book there. You will see where the Indian names, after this, they arrived. The person who was registering them couldn't spell their names. And just if you look in the old registers in the church, you will see where names were changed. You have Sutherland and Thomas and so on, where there's different places where they settled. So all of that, again, the history. History is Baliso. Went to Baliso. The pilgrimage to Baliso, when you had certain churches who say that I'm going to Baliso and work in Obia.
Because by this time you're having these Garifuna people coming in.
We had first it was we had them in from Honduras and Belize. We had the brothers there who came in. We had exhibition and Caetano, and they come in, and so it then grew to become where they were here for the opening of the Rabaca Bridge and all of this, and people started to be interested in their roots, wanted to know where they're from and what and so on. When you start doing the excavation for the airport and having all these other findings with these, the bodies, the skeletons that you found there. We had people from Smithsonian come in. We had people from other universities who came to work on the particular memorandum of understanding. And then my friendship with Cuba, and culture is an essential part of the Cuban identity. And they started working with us in relation to the petroglyphs and seeing more of it. Then we had the Egyptians came in. So we started to build that. You have to build people's consciousness, dig up the history, find the history. And I was a minister that went and not only go in the field, even as Minister of Tourism, I went to visit a lot of these sites, see what they look like. Not just sitting in the office working with my PS and writing. That's not it. Really? Get out there, work with people.
I know we can go on and on because you're, as people would say, you're an encyclopedia of knowledge and certain knowledge of history, and also participant in history. I want to ask one last political question. I'm going to quickly move after that on to back to you as a lawyer and how you see the business climate. We're actually running over time as we speak. So I give you that as a caution.
Okay.
Did you ever see yourself as being Prime Minister? Do you ever have that ambition?
I haven't had that ambition for me. I have had persons during my political career, say to me, oh, but the polls are saying this and the polls are saying that. I said, that's fine. I like what I'm doing. I don't mind the position where I am. And that only happens if more people came forward, and there's this swell for it. Yes, you could see you see certain things that you yourself would see. Other people would see it. You're not blind to it, and it would be hypocritical of me to say I didn't know people were saying different things.
Yeah.
And I said, no, not really. I like the team. I like where I am. Yes, there would be differences of opinion. Yes, you would have not just differences of opinion, but sometimes you have differences of policy, where you would like to go working with different organizations within the political portfolio. But I didn't see myself as prime minister, even though people said things to me. I said, no, y'all have no idea what it takes to be prime minister. You know, they would look within just the parish, as I say, but you
Right.
have to be looking outside of the parish as well.
Let's move quickly on to you now, back in law practice.
Yep.
And you're looking through the lens of a lawyer at the business climate. Take 2 minutes to give me a summation of that, and I want you to bring it to the current situation that we're in with the COVID-19 pandemic and how that is bearing down on
I think we had
affecting the
some
economy.
years I have to go back to 2001. You came in and you saw what was the position. You wanted debt relief. What were the businesses doing? What were the labor? What the labor market, the local labor market looked like? How many people are working? Why they were not working? And you had you look and see what's happening. How are you going to move the economy, and where do the business people fit in? And knowing that Dr. Gonzalez, as head of the party, he believed in dialogue and communication. Let's find out. Let's work with people. And that's what I like about him, is that he has his own ideas, sometimes very fixed ideas, but he is willing to open the gate. Let me hear what other people out there are saying, because no sense you rush through the gate and you don't know what you're going to meet. And so he would ask for that. And when I looked and I saw the role the business people were playing, you know that businesses started to pick up. But where was the business picking up? You had the services sector. That was they were moving, but this kind of jerk movement. You wanted to see a little more elevation. What was preventing the elevation? No international airport. The sticking in Barbados, the late flights, no luggage. Then the goods, the movement of goods, because you'll be lost in banana preferences. What else are you looking at? You have to look at other substitutes. What were the other substitutes? People on the Eastern Seaboard, they're hungry, they want food. People in the islands, from St. Vincent and elsewhere, they want food. How are you going to move that? And the business people would be critical to that. People who are in the maritime trade and the traffickers, where the traffickers are getting the goods. And when the traffickers come back and the turnover of that money and the new traders who are coming into the economy, how are you going to get those things moving? The construction sector has to move, which means the importation of steel, of cement, of lumber. So that again, those are the other business players, the Gibson Construction, the couriers, all those people who are in movement and that.
But in all of this, there had to be some big cog turning all those wheels.
The big cog turning those wheels is that you had to get the money. You had to get either grants or loans to get the money to do those big construction projects, which were roads. There's nothing like roads turning over money, because you have to get people to be working. And construction of big buildings or reconstruction of buildings, the construction sector is very, very important.
What about the tourism sector?
And well, I'm coming to that now. With the tourism sector, as I said, the airport was a big factor. And so...
You think that was transformational?
That was transformational, and it will continue to be transformational. Plus, when you go to market, as I went out as Minister of Tourism, it was always a factor. How are you going to get more people there? Yes, you have the cruise tourism sector, the yachting sector, but with the yachting sector now you have to do training. You have to get people trained as tour operators, what people want to do when they come, what tours they want to do, the eating in the restaurants when they come, and the shopping they may do around, the supplies, because you have supplies for the yachts,
right.
And the stayover visitors. Where are you going to carry them? You have to have people trained. You have to get the buses. You have to also get a couple people who could speak a different language, and you have to get the taxi drivers trained and get them organized.
And in large measure, you sat as Minister of Tourism, so you oversaw all of that development.
The development, and you had to get the human resources. How do you get the human resources? You had to make a secondary education.
Right.
Move it up the ladder. It will speed it up. So everything had to speed up in order for the business sector to be able to turn over those registers. to buy more flour, more rice, more drinks, more everything. And then the bottling companies came on stream. Mountaintop and all these other people, and you saw that moving. Hyrule Bear started to move. Those things started to move. Never mind, people were a little mad at me because I say no bottle, use tin. Well, we got accustomed to it now. We see it on TV where you can't go in a ballpark.
But as we speak, and I think we're going to bring the program to an end here. As we speak, we are facing the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
And, it is creating problems, economic problems globally. And we don't seem to be finding our way out of it. We mean in the collective world. What are your views, Rene, on the vaccine? Is it well, let me not put words in your mouth.
Don't put words in my mouth. We all look at TV. Everybody's on social media. The thing is, the ability, you have to use that ability to sift out misinformation and disinformation from the correct information. We have to trust our people who have the sufficiency of knowledge, scholarship, and qualification and competency, who are there, who have been doing other work in other areas, who have improved, even though, okay, we could always quarrel about this, not sufficient service, and that not sufficient service, but we've been making progress in the health services. So we have to manage the pandemic. We look, there are models for managing. There's one from Israel, there's one from New Zealand, Australia, the United Kingdom, the USA. What's the success story? And we have to read information, not from some little obscure journal that somebody tried to dress up for you on social media. I could create all kind of avatars of myself and say that I'm a professor of something or the other. I mean, you have, in China, you have robots walking around, and you don't even know they're robots. So let us not get distracted by what looks like an opportunity to do something. Because from where I sit, I know there are persons who are looking at this as an opportunity. Let me get at. You have to also go back 20 years, when you came, where you're coming from, heavy loans, get debt relief. Coming back, 9/11, you get hit with that. Coming back, you had those years when the economy tanked, like it tanked all over the world. You remember with the mortgage situation in the United States? It crashed. And things started to pick up in those Obama years. Yes, there are people overseas. And who say people don't go overseas? People go overseas all the time. They're migratory patterns. When people go overseas, the remittances come back. What they're doing with remittances, yes, they're eating. Yes, they're trading out of barrels and so on. But the money was still circulating. You had to fix the banking sector. Remember NCB? What was the situation there? And creating the proper platform.
So let's get back to the vaccine.
So the vaccine now, because you see, you must have the complete picture. Because sometimes we keep putting our hand over one eye and, there are deficiencies there. The vaccine came out, I don't know if you recall, in 2003, when SARS, that is a corona virus. From that time, they have been looking, and I'm talking when I say they, the people that create, that do the research, that put money into it, that have the scientists who do this kind of thing. And they didn't just start doing it at the turn of the 21st century. They're looking at vaccine for AIDS. They're looking at different vaccines.
So they've been building their models.
Yes. So they have models.
Yes.
And they came up with this here after SARS and MERS and so on. They know that those vaccines will continue as we encroach on land that belong to animals. They're going to have problems. Some
viruses leaping from animals.
So you got this vaccine, and you have more than one vaccine. You got Sputnik, you got the 2 out of Cuba, you have AstraZeneca, Spice, and Moderna, Johnson & Johnson. Read the information from the professional and reliable, long-standing institutions that have already indicated this is the way to go. We here in St. Vincent, yes, we're open to the same thing like everybody else, but use your common sense. The areas that have been able to move and start moving and opening their economies are where people are vaccinated.
So you're at the end of the program now. Your advice to
get vaccinated.
Vincentians to
get vaccinated, because you're not going to be able to go from one place to another. If you're going to the Grenadines, properties are in tourism bubble. People want to be served by people who are vaccinated, because this thing it is a pandemic. It is contagious. It's a contagion. It's a plague. And this is the way that the scientists who have guided us through taking Antipa and whatever for worms and castor oil. These are the same people who, well, different people, but the same scientific knowledge. And Viagra, and you have people taking Viagra with strong rum and all this kind of foolishness. But we've been doing that. You're taking your medicine. They're the people who created the radiotherapy and the chemotherapy. Some more you have then. You have the people who even working with the aromatherapy drugs and so on. Yes, we have to take the scientific knowledge, trust our local people in the health services. They are qualified, they are competent, and the legal framework is being put into place to help to deal and manage that crisis. Or we need that money to turn over the economy. The time is not going to wait on us. Time waits on no one.
On that note, thank you very much for being my guest. I have to have you back here. I think we had a good conversation. I think my viewers.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about the legal career.
Know more about Rene Baptiste. Well, we touched a bit of that, but it's difficult to get all within an hour or so.
Yes.
But thank you very much for coming.
Oh, I've enjoyed the program.
Thanks a lot. This has been another edition of Let's Get Down to Business. My guest was Miss Rene Baptiste. Do join us again when we air another program of Let's Get Down to Business.